Oh, hello there. Come in, come in. Quickly now, out of the wind. You look like you've carried the weight of the whole world on your shoulders today. Leave those heavy bags by the door. They can't follow you in here. The kettle is just starting to whistle, and the hearth is finally reaching a proper glow. You're safe now. Sit yourself down in the chair by the window, the one with the wool throw. I was just about to start the evening's preparations. The kitchen is a bit of a mess, I'm afraid. There are bundles of dried lavender hanging from the rafters and bowls of elderberries waiting to be sorted. But it's a warm mess. Can you smell that? It's rosemary and beeswax. I find that the scent of the garden helps to settle the mind when it's spinning too fast. Outside, the blue hour is turning into a deep, velvety purple, and the woods are tucking themselves in for the night. But in here, time moves a little differently. We aren't in any rush. There are no deadlines here, no notifications waiting for an answer, just the steam from the mugs and the steady pulse of the fire. I've always found that the best way to quiet a buzzing mind isn't to force it into silence, but to give it something gentle to hold on to. A bit of kitchen magic, you might say. Tonight, I thought we could work together. Nothing strenuous, mind you, just some simple tasks to help the day fade away. I'll be here, tending to the herbs and the pots, and you can simply watch, or listen, or drift in and out as you please. You don't have to entertain me, and you certainly don't have to be productive. This is your sanctuary. If your eyes start to feel heavy while I'm talking, let them close. I'll keep the watch. I'll keep the fire. For now, just breathe in that rosemary. Feel the warmth of the mug in your hands, and let the outside world stay exactly where it is, on the other side of the door. Now that you've had a moment to catch your breath, and the chill has started to leave your bones, let's begin with the lavender. I gathered these back in the height of the summer, on a Tuesday, if I recall correctly. I remember because it was the day the village tinker usually comes by, but the heat was so pressing that even he stayed in the shade of the elms. The sun was so high and so heavy that the air itself smelled like baking honey. I remember the way the bees were so thick with pollen they could barely stay airborne. Just fat, golden dots hovering lazily over the purple rose, drunk on the scent. They didn't mind me cutting the stems. We've always had an understanding, they and I. I leave them the first blooms of spring, and they let me take the harvest of the high summer. These bundles have been hanging upside down in the larder for months now, tucked away in the dark, right next to the braided garlic and the strings of dried crimson peppers. They've become quite brittle in the dry winter air, which is exactly what we want for tonight. Notice the color as I bring them closer to the candle. It's not that bright, artificial purple you see in the town shops. It's a dusty, greyish blue. To me, it's the color of the sky just before the first stars decide to show themselves. It's a quiet color, a patient color. Pick up a stem with me. Feel how light it is? It's lost all its water to the hearth fire and the passing of the seasons, but it's kept every bit of its soul. We're going to strip the buds from the stalks now. Watch my hands. I use my thumb and my forefinger, starting at the very top, just under the flower head, and sliding down in one smooth, slow motion. Shh. There. Hear that? It's a tiny, papery sound. like a secret being whispered in the back of a vast library. As the buds fall onto the oak of this table, the scent finally breaks open and spills into the room. It's sharp at first, almost like crushed pine needles or the bite of cold mountain air. But then it softens. It mellows into that sweet, sleepy floral note that lingers in the back of the throat. It's a scent that has a memory of its own, isn't it? It reminds me of clean linen drying on a long line in the wind, or the heavy lid of the cedar chest in the hallway where the winter blankets sleep. Don't worry if you spill a few buds on the flagstones. My kitchen floor is used to being a bit of a garden itself. The stones are cold tonight, and I think they could use the perfume anyway. We'll just clear a little space here on the table, moving the crumbs from tea time aside. My grandmother used to tell me that you can't ever rush lavender. She said if you pull too hard or too fast, you bruise the spirit of the plant, and the tea will taste of nothing but haste and regret. You have to let it fall away only when it's ready. Just a steady downward motion. Slide and drop. Slide and drop. See the way the dust motes dance in the candlelight as we work. Each one is a tiny speck of summer caught in the draft of the kitchen. We need a good, generous handful for our jars tonight, enough to fill the room with peace. The stalks we'll save. I'll tie them together with a bit of rough twine later and toss them into the fire just before I blow out the lamps. They smell wonderful when they catch a flame. A little crackle, a little rhythmic pop, and a cloud of purple-grey smoke to guard the chimney against the night air. Just a few more stems now. Slide and drop. There, a small, fragrant hill of summer, sitting right here in the middle of winter. Next, we move to the chamomile. I call these little suns. Look at them piled there in the wicker basket. It's like I've managed to trap a bit of July and keep it here on the kitchen table while the frost patterns grow on the glass outside. Even though they're dried and withered now, they still hold that bright, defiant yellow center, surrounded by those tiny, white, papery petals. They look like 1,000 tiny eyes, don't they? All closed and dreaming of the field they came from. They're much more delicate than the lavender we just finished. If you press too hard with your fingers, just a bit too much pressure, they turn to yellow dust, and we don't want that. No, we want to keep the heads whole so they can unfurl in the hot water later, stretching out like they're waking up for a second time after a long winter nap. I'm just going to pick through them one by one. It's a slow process, removing any stray bits of green leaf or rough woody stem that might have snuck in during the harvest. It's a bit like sorting through a tin of old, mismatched buttons. Each one is slightly different. Each one has its own weight and its own story to tell. Clink. That's the sound of the ceramic bowl. It's a bit chipped on the rim, as you can see. I dropped it 3 winters ago, the night of the great sleet, while I was making a winter root mash for a neighbour down the lane. I remember the way it skidded across the flagstones, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. It has character now. It survived a few things, just like we have. The yellow of the chamomile looks so cheerful against that deep blue glaze, don't you think? It's like a summer meadow reflected in the surface of a shaded pond. As I move the flowers from the basket to the bowl, breathe in deep with me. Can you smell the apple? That's the secret of truly good chamomile. The ground apple, as the old books call it. It doesn't actually smell like a flower at all. It smells like a sun-warmed orchard in late September. It's the scent of fruit that's grown heavy and is finally starting to drop into the tall, cool grass. It's a heavy, grounding scent. It's the kind of smell that speaks directly to the spirit. It tells the stomach to stop its churning, and it tells the head to stop its racing. Rustle, rustle. I'm looking for the ones that feel springy to the touch. If they feel too limp or soft, it means they've caught the damp from the kitchen steam or the morning mist, and they won't steep properly. We only want the ones that crackle slightly, like a tiny, microscopic firework when you roll them between your fingers. One for the bowl, one for the tea, one for the sachet. It's a slow rhythm, a heartbeat rhythm. There's no prize for finishing this quickly. In fact, if we finish too fast, we'll have to go back to thinking about all those things we left outside the door. And we don't want that. We aren't ready for the world yet. We want to stay right here, in the yellow and the blue. Just a few more. Clink. There. A bowl full of little suns to keep the night at bay. We have everything we need now. Finally, we add the heavy hitters of the herb garden. This is mugwort, or dream thistle, as the folks further down in the valley like to call it. It's a rugged, stubborn plant, not at all like the delicate, papery chamomile we just finished. Mugwort doesn't grow in the neat, sun-drenched rows of the garden. It prefers the wilder edges of the deep woods, right where the shadows start to get long and the air stays cool even at noon. It's a survivor, this one. Notice the tops of the leaves. They're a deep, brooding dark green, almost exactly the color of a pine forest at dusk when the light is failing. But turn one over in your hand. See that? The underside is pure silver. In the middle of a summer night, a field of wild mugwort looks like a shimmering, restless sea under the stars. It looks as though it's been dusted with the very breath of the moon itself. Mugwort is for the deep sleep, the kind that doesn't just rest the body, but mends the spirit. It's for the dreams that take you across the great woods and back again before the first bird starts its song. The kind of dreams where you fly effortlessly over the highest treetops and remember, for a moment, exactly what it feels like to have wings. It's a bit fuzzy to the touch, almost like the soft velvet ear of a young lamb. I'm going to tear these leaves into smaller pieces now. Cook! Do you hear that? It's a different sound than the lavender. Sturdier, more stubborn, a bit more defiant. We don't want to grind these into a fine, forgotten powder. We just want to open them up, to let the sleeping oils know it's finally time to wake up. I'll use the wooden mortar now. This was carved by my grandfather from the heart of an old apple tree that fell in a great storm long before I was even born. Thump, thump, thump. It's a low, hollow sound, a heartbeat for the room. We aren't smashing the leaves into the wood. We're just leaning into them, letting the natural weight of the apple wood and the weight of our own tired shoulders do the work for us. The scent that's rising now is bitter, earthy and impossibly deep. It doesn't smell like a manicured garden. It smells like the rich soil after a heavy autumn rain. It's the smell of the earth's roots. It's a scent that tells your body it is finally okay to let go of the day's tensions. It tells your tired muscles they can become as heavy and as settled as a stone in a slow-moving creek bed. Can you feel that shift? The way the air here in the kitchen has changed? It's thick now and warm and remarkably quiet. We have the lavender for the heart, the chamomile for the spirit, and now the mugwort for the deep, dark places of the mind. Thump, thump. There. Now, look at our pile here on the oak table. The dusty blue of the lavender, the golden centers of the chamomile, and the silver green of the mugwort. They're all sorted. They're all ready. The hardest part of your day is officially over. We've done the work, you and I. Now we simply have to bring them together and let the water do the rest. I'll just set the iron kettle on the center of the hook. There. Hear the fire welcome it? That low, heavy thrum of the iron against the heat. It's a patient sound. Now, while we wait for that slow, rolling boil to find its way, lean back into those cushions. Let the wool hold you. You know, the sound of a whistling kettle always brings me back to a story my own grandmother used to tell me. She'd sit exactly where you are sitting now, on nights when the winters were particularly long and the firewood was running low. She called it the Tale of the Silver Peak. It's a story about a traveler, someone who looked a lot like you feel right now. Someone who had simply grown very, very tired of the noise of the world. In this tale, the traveler lived in a city made entirely of gears and steam. It was a place where the clocks never stopped their frantic ticking, and the lamps in the windows never truly went dark. Every street was a hurry of boots on cobblestone, and every face you passed was a deadline waiting to happen. The air there didn't smell like rosemary or wood smoke. It smelled like cold metal and old soot. One night, while standing on a bridge overlooking a river of grey water, the traveller realised something terrifying. He had forgotten the sound of his own breath. He had forgotten what it felt like to simply stand in a place where nothing, absolutely nothing, was expected of him. So, he did the only thing a sensible person could do. He went home, packed a small waxed canvas bag with just a heel of bread, a flask of well water, and a heavy charcoal grey wool cloak. And then, without saying a word to the clocks or the gears, he began to walk toward the Silver Peak. The Silver Peak was a mountain that lived at the very edge of the maps, just past where the cartographers usually stop drawing. It wasn't one of those jagged, angry mountains that looks like a row of broken teeth. No, it was broad and patient, its summit always tucked away in a soft grey blanket of clouds, like it was keeping a secret from the sky. They say that on the Silver Peak, the air is so thin and so pure that it washes the dust right out of your thoughts, leaving your mind as clear as a mountain spring. The traveller walked for 7 days and 7 nights. He watched the stone streets turn into dirt paths, and the dirt paths turn into mossy trails that wound through the ancient roots of the hemlocks. With every mile he put between themselves and the city, the sound of the gears grew fainter, like a radio being turned down in another room. further and further away until it was just a hum, and then nothing. By the third day, the only sound was the rhythmic crunch, crunch of their boots on the dry, rust-colored pine needles. By the fifth day, it was only the wind whistling through the high, lonely crags, sounding like a flute played by a giant. As he climbed higher, the world below began to look very small, like a child's toy set left out in the rain and forgotten. The great wars of the valleys, the busy markets, the shouting voices. From up here, they all became nothing more than a silent blur of blue and green. The traveler felt a strange, soaring lightness in his chest. It wasn't that the world below had disappeared or ceased to exist. It was just that it no longer had any gravity. It couldn't pull at him anymore. Up here, on the steep slopes of the Silver Peak, the only thing that mattered was the next step, the next slow breath, and the way the orange sunset light hit the frost on the rocks. Finally, just as the sun was dipping below the horizon on the seventh night, the traveler saw a faint amber glow coming from a cave mouth high above him. It wasn't a flickering, scary fire. It was a steady, warm, honey-colored light. The kind of light that promises a chair, a hearth, and a story. This was the entrance to the great library of the Silver Peak, and inside sat the archivist, the keeper of all the things the world has forgotten how to say out loud. He stood at the mouth of that cave for a long time, the wind tugging at his cloak, before he finally found the courage to step over the threshold. As his boots met the smooth stone floor, the silence hit him like a warm, heavy blanket. The cave wasn't cold or damp. It was lined from floor to ceiling with thousands upon thousands of cedar shelves. On these shelves sat books bound in velvet, in worn leather, and in pressed leaves. There were no titles on the spines, for the archivist knew every story by heart and had no need for labels. The archivist was a figure who seemed to be made of soft shadows and ancient linen. He didn't look up as the traveler entered. He was far too busy mending a very old, very fragile map with a silver needle. "You've come a long way," the archivist said, and his voice sounded like the rustle of dry pages in a summer breeze. "You've brought a great deal of noise with you, I'm afraid. I can hear it in your heartbeat. It's drumming like a trapped bird against a window pane." The traveler sat down on a stool made of river-smoothed stone, his legs feeling heavy from the 7-day climb. "I want to forget," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I want to go somewhere where the clocks can no longer find me." The archivist finally looked up, a slow and gentle crinkling appearing around his eyes. "You've come to the right place. In this library, we don't keep track of hours. We keep track of moments. See that shelf there?" The archivist pointed to a row of tiny glass vials tucked between the books. "Those are the sounds of a summer afternoon in the year 402. And those?" He pointed to a stack of blue-bound ledgers. "Those are the dreams of every cat that has ever slept by a kitchen fire." The traveler reached out and touched a book bound in silver silk. As his fingers grazed the cover, he felt a wave of peace wash over him. Not a sleepy peace, but a wide-awake, crystalline stillness. He realized that for the first time in years, his mind wasn't trying to solve a problem. It wasn't trying to plan for tomorrow or fix the mistakes of yesterday. He was simply there. The archivist set down his silver needle and walked over to a small iron stove tucked into a corner of the rock. He poured a cup of tea that smelled of mountain heather and ancient starlight. "Drink this," he said, handing the traveller a cup that felt warm against his cold palms. "The world wants you to believe that you are a machine, that you must always be moving, always producing, always shouting. But the mountain knows the truth. The mountain knows that the most powerful thing in the world is a stone that sits perfectly still for 1,000 years." The traveller took a long sip. It was hot, and it tasted like the very first snowfall of winter. He felt the warmth spread down through his throat, into his chest, and out to his weary fingertips. Outside the cave, the wind began to howl, but inside, the silence only deepened. It was a heavy, protective silence. It was the kind of silence that finally allowed him to hear what his heart had been trying to tell him all along. He stayed in the library of the Silver Peak for what felt like a single, quiet hour, and also what felt like a long, beautiful lifetime. Time doesn't work the same way when you're surrounded by cedar and starlight. He spent that time wandering slowly through the narrow aisles of forgotten stories, his fingers trailing over the spines of books that felt like warm stone or soft moss. He read about the way the green moss grows specifically on the north side of the ancient hemlocks, and he studied the intricate hexagonal patterns of the snowflakes that fell during the Great Calm, a winter so quiet that you could hear a feather land on a frozen pond 3 miles away. As he read, he began to realize something profound. He learned that every worry, every deadline, and every sharp word he had carried up the mountain was like a heavy, jagged stone tucked away in his pocket. He had been carrying that weight for so many years that he had actually forgotten he was carrying it at all. It had just become part of his posture. But here, in the presence of the archivist, he realized he could just take them out. One by one, the traveller reached into the deep pockets of his mind. He took out the cold, heavy stone of the gears in the city. He took out the sharp, ticking stone of the clocks. He took out the jagged grey fear of a future he couldn't control. And with a long, shaking breath, he laid them down on the cedar shelves, right next to the glass vials of summer afternoons and the ledgers of cat dreams. As each stone left his hand, the traveller felt his shoulders drop. He felt his spine lengthen. He felt the air in the room become easier to swallow. "Can I stay here forever?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper in the vast cedar-scented quiet. The archivist looked at him with a kindness that seemed to span centuries. "You don't need to stay here in the cave," he said softly. "The library isn't a destination you visit, it's a place you carry inside of you. The Silver Peak is simply the rhythm of your own breath. The cedar shelves are built from your own most peaceful memories. Whenever the world outside gets too loud again, and it will, whenever the gears start to grind too hard, all you have to do is close your eyes and walk back up that mossy path. The door is always open. The tea is always hot. You are the master of this threshold." As the traveller eventually left the cave and began the long, winding walk back down into the valley, he noticed something strange. The world hadn't changed one bit while he was gone. The city was still there. The gears were still turning with their iron teeth, and the clocks were still ticking away the seconds. But the traveller was entirely different. He carried the heavy golden silence of the Silver Peak in his very bones. He walked through the noisy, crowded streets, but he didn't hear the shouting or the bells. He only heard the gentle rustle of dry pages and the sound of the soft snow falling on the high crags. He realized then that you don't find peace by running away from the world. You find peace by building a library inside yourself, a sanctuary where you can store the honeyed sunlight and the scent of rosemary and the low, steady sound of a crackling fire. A place where you are the archivist, and the only stories that matter are the ones that bring you rest. And that is why I keep this kitchen exactly the way I do. Because every time you come through that door, you are stepping into your own library. You are the traveler, and I am just here to help you unpack those heavy stones from your pockets. Now, the water is finally ready. Let's pour the tea and let the rest of the world fade away into the deep shadows. Watch the steam as it rises from the pot. It's carrying the essence of the lavender, the golden heart of the chamomile, and the silver spirit of the mugwort up into the dark rafters. It wraps around the dried bundles and the old blackened wooden beams like a silent white ribbon. I'm going to place the heavy ceramic lid on the pot now. We'll let it sit here on the corner of the hearth, steeping in the quiet, for a little while longer. Herbs, like people, need a few moments in the dark to give over their best parts. They need the heat to remember who they are. You don't need to do anything else tonight. In fact, the most important part of the medicine is already working. It's in the very air you're breathing. It's in the way the amber firelight is flickering against the back of your eyelids. It's in the weight of your hands, resting in your lap. I'm going to move over to the hearth now and add one last heavy log of applewood. There. That will burn slow and steady, providing a constant, low light for this room. I'll be sitting right here in my wingback chair, just watching the embers turn from orange to a soft, glowing red. Whether you choose to close your eyes and drift away, or simply sit here with me in the stillness, you have reached your own silver peak tonight. Both are exactly what you need. Can you feel how quiet the kitchen has become? The rain outside is just a ghost of a sound now. A rhythmic tapping that only serves to make the inside feel warmer and more permanent. The shadows in the corners are soft and friendly. They are the same shadows that have watched over travelers for 1,000 years. Your breathing is starting to match the pulse of the fire, slow and deep, in and out. There is no more sorting to do. There are no more mountains to climb. The heavy stones have all been laid on the shelves. Your pockets are empty. Your mind is clear. Your heart is still. If you find your thoughts wandering, let them go. There is no pressure here to be anything or to go anywhere. The library is open and the tea is steeping. And for this moment, time has simply stopped its counting. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. You are safe. You are warm. You are settled. I'll stay here for a while, tending to the light and the quiet. Take all the time you need. Let the darkness be a soft velvet blanket, and let the silence be your anchor. Whether you are moving toward dreams or simply finding your center, the door is double bolted against the wind. You are home.